on Devontae Wyatt this year?
Well, I think with anybody up front, you want playmakers, obviously. But specifically when you talk about a defensive lineman, a three technique, disruption, because I think you can, obviously the sacks are the things that get talked about all the time, but just to be an all-around disruptive player. He has that ability, he has that quickness, he has that athleticism. Just to be a disruptive force in the obviously the passing game, but the run game as well. And it's every single rookie is different, and some guys come in and have a easy transition. Some guys have a little bit of a more difficult one, but I always like to see what those guys do in that time frame from year one to year two. So he's been here every day, which I think first way to get better is just to show up and be in the building, and he's been here every single day, phase one and phase two, so he looks great, he's in great shape. So excited to get out on the grass and go through OTAs with him next week.
Looking at your secondary, it's pretty easy to see Darnell slotting in at safety since he's played so much there, but
yeah.
Do you know who your other starting safety is at this point?
No, but you know what? That's the great thing about the offseason. It's May. That's selfishly for us, for coaches, we get that 9-week period where we get to get our hands on the guys, and we're in the 5th week right now, and we've got some new faces in that room. So, but that's what OTAs are for. That's what obviously training camp's for. So we're in the beginning stages of the process of finding that out.
What's going to decide that competition for you, Joe? Like, what are you looking for somebody to separate themselves, to be that second starter at safety?
I think you've heard me talk about, I'm big on, consistency. I think that's, I've bragged over the years, a guy like Kenny Clark, not only is he consistent with his play, he's consistent with everything he does every single day when he's in this building. I think when you have a vacancy, especially with the starting spot, and you have a number of guys that are in competition for that, I think the biggest thing that I look for as a coach when you're deciding that is just the overall consistency every single day. And obviously then you got to get into doing your job and making plays and being productive. But it starts with just being a consistent guy every single day to be one of those starting 11.
What do you know, Joe, about Tavarius Moore and Jonathan Owens, the two veteran guys that you signed?
Yeah, just that. They've been veteran guys that they've been in the league 4 or 5 years. They've been predominantly special teams players. Jonathan played his best football a year ago. He started 17 games, had his most production on defense. And then T. Moore's been a guy that's coming from a good program in San Francisco. And they're from everything that we vet those players obviously when they get here, and they're great guys. They're great teammates. They've been pros. They've been in this league a long time. So they all have different stories on how they've gotten to being here in Green Bay. But excited they're here. Excited to get out and actually play some football next week in the OTAs and truly see what they got. Jonathan literally just got here on Thursday last week. T. Moore's been here the whole offseason. So I'm sorry, Wes.
What stands out to you about Van Ness, and how do you think he can help you? Some of the positional versatility stuff he did in Iowa.
Yeah, well, if have you seen him in person? I mean, when he walks in the room, I mean, he's a big man, and he's young. It's I know from a evaluation part, put my evaluator hat on. When you see a guy that walks in the room and he's 6'4", whatever, 270, whatever. He's got length, he's got explosion, and then you look at the fact that he's 21 years old. So I think he is it's scary when you get a young player like that, to kind of close your eyes and think about what those guys will be, 3, 4, 5 years down the road when they are, 25, 26 years old. But great kid. The rookies literally got here today. We had our rookie minicamp the weekend after the draft, so they were here for a weekend and then by rule had to leave. So really liked what we saw in the 2 days of practice that we had on that Friday and Saturday during the rookie minicamp with all the rookies, but with Lucas especially. You know, he's a big explosive guy that, you know, I think will be able to have some versatility, athletic enough that we're going to be able to stand him up and play on the edge, but then also big and physical enough that we'll be able to kind of move him up and down all over the line. So, but very excited. Like I said, we just got done with a workout with him today with all the rookies. But Lucas is he's an exciting guy. I can't wait to work with him.
Joe, you mentioned closing your eyes and visualizing what this guy may look like when he's 24, 25. What are the keys to accelerating the growth process in any rookie? What are the things that you've seen in your history that have allowed young guys to make that impact sooner than others?
It's a great question, you know, because a lot of times, you know, the here is now. You know, we expect, and you know, I think he has the ability to be able to obviously do something in the immediate future. But those are all the things, you know, Brian and his staff does such a great job with the evaluation process. And right now, Lucas and really any rookie, when you get him here in May, they're just, you know, they're a ball of clay that you just kind of want to mold into our system and do what we do with them. But he is, you cannot, as soon as you guys get to see him, you know, up close and personal out on the grass, big man that's explosive. So I think that's always a great place to start when you got a guy that has length, that has explosion, that has power, that has the versatility, as I mentioned. Those are the things that I'm excited about.
I want to play a little word association, or in this case, words association. If I would say 8 #1 draft choices out of your first 11, you would say?
What do you
No, it's just, well, you've got 8 first-round picks now, I think, on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Just talk about trying to maximize that investment.
Sure. Well, let me flip your little game here. What if we just had a roster full of 7th-round draft picks? Would expectations not be high? You know, we expect this is the greatest thing about not only the National Football League, but being at the Green Bay Packers. Expectations are high all the time, no matter what. So, regardless of the fact, I'm very aware of our roster. I'm very aware of the draft status of all of our players, but expectations are and should be high all the time, and this year will be no different. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So, I don't know if I answered the question the way you wanted, but the expectations thing does not. That's the great thing about having this word on our chest, is that we're Green Bay Packers, and the expectations at this place are high all the time, and that's great. I love it.
Just to be fair to you, though, after...
Is this another word association?
No, but I'm going to read you a quote that Goody said after he picked Van Ness.
Okay.
And it was, we put a lot of investment into that group, and there are high expectations there.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that there's always high expectations, but when you look at last season, there were a lot of high expectations put on you guys, and it seemed like by the end of the season, you kind of found yourselves a little bit. How do you deal with those types of expectations, especially when you marry it to the fact that you don't have a 4-time NFL MVP who sometimes erases mistakes by other people?
Yeah.
And you've got a young quarterback. So what do you guys as a group have to do to not only meet those high expectations, but maybe do even a little bit more to help this team be better?
Absolutely. You know, we threw that word out a little bit earlier, consistency. You know, I think that was probably the most disappointing thing. And you guys have been around me for 3 years now. I'm not a big rear view mirror guy. You know, I want to look forward. I want to look through the windshield and what's ahead. But I think if you do go back and really critique last year, the inconsistencies were the things that really got us. And we played well at times, we didn't play well at times. And that's what you can't do in this league. you know, you mentioned the quarterback and his honors. It doesn't matter on our side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball. That's the thing that we got to do week in and week out, is that we got to show up and play our best version of football, our best version of defense. And we can't be up one week and down the next. You know, we got to find that consistency and show up every single week. And like I said, the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season, we found that. We don't have time to waste 10 weeks, you know. But again, I'll go back to, we're in May. That's what OTAs are for. That's what the off season's for. That's what training camp is for. But yeah, we gotta be much more consistent than we were a year ago, week in and week out.
Can you peek in the rearview mirror real quick on how you altered what you did last year and how that affects what you're gonna do moving forward? Matt has made it sound like you guys simplified things down the stretch and that really worked for you. What did you take from that experience last year that you can look through the windshield and use moving forward?
Yeah, you know, I think you're always, I don't know if I want to use the word simplify, but I think you're always evolving. You know, I think as a coach, you know, as a play caller, you're always evolving because, you know, things that maybe worked last year, you know, you got to evolve and you got to move on. Things that maybe aren't working at the start of a season, you know, you got to evolve. That happens in the course of a game. You know, you go into a game at halftime, or to start a game. Sometimes you got to evolve at halftime to make those, you know, halftime adjustments, whatever. So, you know, I think just I definitely think we evolved last year into, you know, what worked for us. But, you know, the key thing is you got to do that early. You got to do it now. So, but it's a great group of guys. Back to we have great guys that are great players in that locker room. We really do, specifically when you're talking about our side of the ball. And, you know, we lost a couple guys, but we got a great group of guys. And just working with them the last 5 weeks, you know, we get 4 more weeks with them before training camp, and just excited about the process.
The inconsistencies that you did have and not meeting the high expectations, did you ever wonder as last season wound down if you'd be back?
No.
What was your process when you look back, and I know you're a forward thinker, but to review the season and come to this conclusion that you guys involved, what was your process on discovering what went wrong, what went right late in the year? How much did you take a look at that, or was it just full slate forward?
Well, I mean, you're talking about the overall big picture. You know, that's whether you play, you know, regardless, you know, our process as coaches, especially in the off season when we get back to work in February, is that, you know, we go through every single play of the previous season with a fine-tooth comb, you know, and we're always looking for that edge. Of course, you know, looking at the things we did well, improving on the things that we did poorly, evolving in whatever, you know, area or situation of the game that we need to evolve and improve upon. But, I mean, that process really is pretty much the same regardless every single year. But there was a number of things that, you know, it starts with me that, you know, I have to do better. In order for this group to play better, I have to do better. And those are things that, you know, you self-evaluate that every single year.
What are those things?
Well, I think, you know, the situational football, I think, and I think it's probably pretty standard, team in and team out around the league, but the situational football, you know, usually NFL football games, most of the time, they're close games. You know, our league is, games are won or lost, and there's very few blowouts in this league. And most of the time, those games come down to 4 or 5, you know, maybe 6 or 7 plays. And if the result of those handful of plays are different, you know, that's the difference between winning and losing a football game. So, and a lot of times, those go into situational football. It goes into third down. It goes into red zone. It goes into 2-minute. And then probably the other thing is the explosion play, whether it's getting the ball thrown over your head or getting run through, and a lot of times that goes with missed tackles. So those are probably all the things year in and year out that we as coaches spend the bulk of our time in situational football and tackling. And if you clean those things up, you got a chance.
Talk about the transition from Jerry Gray to Greg and what he brings.
Say that again, sir?
From Jerry Gray to Greg Williams.
Oh, yeah.
On staff. And then, if you have to, replacing Adrian Amos on the back end.
Yeah. Losing Jerry Gray, that's every single year, we talk about this with the players, but it's really no different with the coaching staff. Rarely is the group of men that is, like last year, the group of men that was the 2022 Green Bay Packers, very rarely is that room exactly the same the next year in 2023, whether it be the coaching staff or the locker room. So change is something that is common. We lost a coach. We replaced him with Greg Williams, who is a great young coach in this league. We also gave a little bit more responsibility to Ryan Downard, who will also be, in that room with the DBs. But two fine young defensive back coaches that I'm excited about. Adrian Amos is, I think anytime that you lose a guy that has had a C on his chest, those are tough guys to replace. Not only what he brought to us on the football field, but what he brought to us in this building, what he brought to us in the locker room every single day. But again, that's part of the NFL. That's part of the league that we're in. Change is unfortunately, it happens, and you have to just move on and find a way to get better.
Matt was saying that's not Stokes. Keyshawn's going to get the first crack at the nickel, and Rasul will be back outside. Where does that leave Stokes? How do you see him factoring in? First, how is he doing physically, and what do you kind of see his role being?
Well, that's the thing I think we have to start with is, Eric had a pretty substantial injury, and he's on the road to recovery. He's been in the building every single day. It's great to just see him walking around and being here. We'll kind of just, next time I talk to you, hopefully I have a little bit more to report on. But, we'll see where he goes day to day. But, on Monday when we start OTAs, we got, with Eric not even being able to practice, we feel like we got two pretty good outside corners in Ja and Rasul. And then Keyshawn, he played about 400 snaps for us last year on defense, predominantly at the nickel corner spot. So, when we break the huddle on Monday, he'll be there. But again, it's May. That's the thing about, I keep saying, about OTAs and training camp. All that stuff will sort out.
A lot of places and seen a lot of things in this league. Have you been somewhere where there's been a quarterback transition, and from your viewpoint, what makes it successful? What have you seen that helps a team go from one quarterback to the next?
Yeah, I don't think, Rob, that I've ever been, I don't think any of us have ever been in a situation like this where, you're losing a caliber player of like that. But again, back to what we talked about, change in the National Football League, it happens. It's not uncommon, like we said, from coaching staffs to locker rooms. But, I think it keeps moving on. They're not going to wait for us, and, we're still going to kick off opening day. It doesn't matter, what players we've lost or, but I think that's the exciting challenge about this. And we'll just, we'll see where it leads. But no, I've never been involved. This is going to be, I think, my 22nd year in the NFL, and I've never been, a part of something like this. But, change happens, and you got to move on. You got to just find a way to wake up every day and get better.